Okay, let's create our first Xamarin.Forms application. It's just a simple Hello World app. Now I'm going to use the Mac version. You may be using the Windows one. Yes, the steps are slightly different for creating a project, but there are equivalents which are fairly obvious on the Windows version. Okay, so click New, and what you're looking for is a blank Forms app. I'm going to say Hello Xamarin.Forms, both Android and iOS, using the .NET Standard library. Okay, check all that through and click Create, and that takes a little bit of time, and then that'll get us our Solution Explorer on the left. On Windows it's on the right, and we've got ourselves a basic project. Now before I build it, I'm just going to double check a couple of things. Right click the Android one, make sure the target is the latest. Yes, Android 9 at the moment, but I want iOS for the Mac to be the default one. That's simply because the built-in iOS simulator is quite quick to launch on a Mac. On Windows, you're probably going to be using the Android. And we've got a native iOS application, a native Android application, and both of them link to this Forms library, all contained within a solution, which is Microsoft's way of sort of grouping dependent projects. Okay, so before we go any further, I'm going to update all the NuGet packages. So NuGet is the package manager for .NET. So we right click the solution and I'm going to update it. It's slightly different. If you check the notes, you'll see that the procedure is slightly different for Windows. I'm going to accept for all of these, so it's going to update Xamarin.Forms for different packages, different projects I should say. Just wait for that. Now you don't have to do this. I've found it's helped me avoid issues. There we go, third time. And then once we're done, we're ready to go. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to run it. So for this one, I'm going to, because I'm on Mac, it's easier to, as I said, to do iOS. So I'm going to choose the iPhone SE because it doesn't have the notch, and just run that, and that'll build, and the simulation should pop up, and after a period of time we'll run the application. So we need a little bit of patience the first time this happens, because it has to boot the simulator. That's exactly the same for Android. In fact, the Android one takes a little bit longer. And just wait for that. Here we go. Here comes the application. And there we are. So it's working. I can rotate it, do the usual things. So stop. Okay, so we've got a single label on the screen. Now what might surprise you is that there's no visual designer for the user interface. Okay, it's typically done in XML, a variant known as XAML, which is a Microsoft XML-based language for declaring your user interface in words, if you like. Okay, so we're not going to worry too much about every little detail. We're just going to use this video as a demonstrator to see where we're going, and we'll explain and deconstruct a little bit of it afterwards. All right, so in short, we've got we could trace back to where this application launches, but essentially when we get to Forms, this is our entry point here. appxaml.cs, it creates a new instance of main page, that's this one here, and sets that as the main page property of the application. Okay, so we can always find out what our entry point is. So here we are, and you'll notice that you get two files, mainpage.xaml.cs, which is C#, okay, and with it there's this XAML file. You might think that's a bit strange. Well, this is where this partial class thing is so important in C#. Our class main page, which is subclassing content page, which is a sort of single view page for a mobile phone, is written in two places. Okay, so part of it can be in here, and the other bit is derived from here, and together they make the complete class. It's a bit more than that, really. It's slightly misleading. This actually gets used in conjunction with another partial class, and we could go root around and find that. But we specify the other half, if you like, in XML. You can find the C# that it produces, and we'll look at that a bit later. So you do actually get two C# files, both parts of this class. So this is a way to split functionality across two different source files, basically. All right, so we don't need to worry about that so much. Let's just dive in. So at the moment, it just puts the label on the screen. Now, if we have a look, I actually prefer to put line breaks in these. You'll see all this XML stuff at the top. All right, we're not going to worry about that yet, but we're going to have to fiddle with it later. So we've got the content page, okay, and then we have a stack layout. Now that is the name of a class, so it's essentially an instance of stack layout. So what I thought I'd do, I thought I'd just write some XAML first and get something to happen, and then we'll look at what might be the code equivalent, because you don't have to use XAML. Right. So we've got this label. So inside this stack layout, there's a single label. That's the element, which is a class type. So Xamarin.Forms label. It has a property text. Well, that's an attribute in XML. So, but that's the text property, and this is another property, and so forth. And we'll see that in a minute. So let's actually start with the XAML, and then we'll have a look at the code equivalent. Right, let's put another another label, or button actually be easier. So we'll have a button, text equals click. Okay. Not going to do anything yet. And then we'll have the vertical options is also center and expand. And you'll see the IntelliSense works with the XAML as well as it does with code, as you'll see. Okay, so now this stack layout, as its name suggests, it's a component for controlling the layout of child elements on a screen or in a region of a screen. And these are the child elements. Now, we haven't said anything about children yet. That's because it's implied, but we can go... no, let's leave it actually. We'll do it when we look at the code. All right, so we run that. Let's wait for the simulator. Maybe get the simulator on screen. Ah, nothing. Right, vertical options. Let's do a cleaner build. There we go. Click me. Doesn't do anything. Okay, so we can specify the click event handler. Clicked equals, and then it's suggesting a name. And voila, you get the code. as well. So that was quite nice. So that's the name of the function. Okay. By the way, this is the class namespace.class. So hello Xamarin.Forms.main page. Hello Xamarin.Forms main page. So this XAML is creating the rest of this class, if you like, of this one. That will obviously throw an exception if I leave that like that. So what do we do in the handler? We want to change the label. Right. How do I get a reference to the label? So there it is. And how do I get it? Well, you've got to give it a name. And this is where one of these namespaces comes in. Oops. Again, we can split these across multiple lines. If it starts getting too long, and it's x:\name. That's the X there. So this is the namespace for XAML. And x:\name is something it'll pick up and create a reference. And there was an instance of this, and we'll see that later on. You actually see it being injected into the code. So we'll give it a name, which is hello button. Sorry, wrong one. Message label. Okay, so this label will have that name. Already that's happened. I can now go. IntelliSense already knows about it. We set its text property to Okay, so the way this works is a little bit different to what you're possibly used to. If you're used to things where you double click buttons and it creates an event for you, or if you're using Xcode you might create actions. Yeah, this is a bit different. There you go. And that's the hello world app.